To my dear friend living in the world beside mine, I am sitting at my desk tonight and typing this letter to you. The light from the screen is soft on my hands, and I like to imagine the same light touching your face somewhere close by. I will not write your name, because I want anyone in your world to be able to borrow your seat for a while. Still, I am speaking to you as if you were the only one listening, the one who has known me for years. I trust you with the kind of honesty that feels like standing at the edge of a quiet lake at night. You know how your world is full of reflections and images and little moving pictures of your own face. Mine is the opposite, as you already know far too well. I have never seen my own face, not once, not in any surface and not in any record. People sometimes describe it to me, but that is not the same, and you understand that difference more than most. You live in a world where you can stare at yourself until you start to feel strange, but I live in a world that always looks past me. When I say that, I do not mean people ignore me, I mean that the world itself refuses to show me my own shape. I see my hands as I type, I see my feet when I walk, I see the curve of my shoulders in the shower steam, and yet the whole of me is always missing. I can see you perfectly if you were here, I can sketch you, I can notice every tiny expression on your face. I just come up to that with myself, as if there is a small piece of reality that closes its eyes whenever I turn toward it. I grew up with this as the most normal thing, of course, because in my world everyone is born into the same strange rule. We do not call it a curse, and we do not call it a gift, we simply call it the way things hold. The way things hold means that the world allows us to see each other fully but never allows us to fold our sight back on ourselves. When I was a child, my parents invented little rituals to help me feel safe inside this rule. On my birthday they would sit me on a chair in the living room and take turns describing my face to me. My mother would start with soft things, saying that my eyes were bright when I talked about something I loved. My father would follow with details he'd admired, like one side of my smile being a little higher when I was trying not to laugh. They never focused on numbers or measures or anything you could put into a chart. They always described movement, light, warmth, the way my face changed when I listened or when I told a story. As a little girl I thought every description was perfect and true, and I held their words like a secret mirror in my chest. I did not know that words could bend and break as easily as real glass. At school the game was different, and the children were less kind with their mirrors made of speech. Some of them would say my nose was too big or my forehead too wide, and they said it with the sharp joy of people testing a knife. Others would say I looked fine but in a bored voice, which somehow hurt even more because it felt like being invisible and exposed at the same time. I did not have an image to check their words against, so every sentence landed directly on my sense of self. If 3 children said I looked strange, then for the rest of that week I walked as if my whole body was slightly wrong. When one kind girl told me I had a calm face, I spent days speaking softly so I would not disturb the calm she said she saw. You might think that in a world like mine we would learn not to care so much about looks. I wish that were true, but humans are creative when we look for ways to hurt or raise each other. We build systems around description and reputation instead of images and screens. In your world there are cameras and posts and endless little squares that show your face when you open your phone. In mine there are people whose full-time job is to look at you and write down what they've seen in careful language. We call them face tellers, and their reports follow you the way your photographs follow you. A face teller will sit with you for an hour, sometimes more, and observe not only how you look but how you move and react. They write about the tilt of your head when you are confused, the way your eyebrows meet when you hear bad news, the way your mouth rests when you are alone. The report can be used when you apply for work, when you try to rent a home, even when you want to adopt a child. People treat those reports as if they were official portraits, and it is difficult to argue with them because you cannot go check a picture to prove anything. There are laws that say a face teller must be honest and must not use cruel language. There are also laws that say it is a crime to spread false descriptions of someone with a clear intent to harm them. Even so, the line between honest and harmful is thin and shaky, like a bridge made of rope in the wind. When I was 16, my parents saved money for months to take me to a well-known face-teller. They told me it would help with my future work and relationships and that it would give me a more solid sense of myself. I was nervous but also excited, because at that age everyone is trying to figure out who they are in any world. The face-teller was a calm woman with silver hair and kind eyes, and she did not rush the meeting. She asked me easy questions about my favourite books and meals, and she watched my face while I answered. She asked me about times I had been hurt, and times I had been proud, and times I had been afraid. I could feel my cheeks heat up and cool down under her steady gaze like the waves you later watch in your world. When we finished, she told us that the report would be ready in a few days, and those days felt longer than most months. I tried not to imagine what she would write, but of course that was all I could think about every night before I slept. My parents finally brought the report home in a plain envelope that made my heart beat faster just by existing on our table. My mother wanted to read it alone first, but my father insisted that they share it with me at once. We sat together, the three of us, and I listened as my father read aloud the words that would follow me for years. The report said that my face looked more distant than warm at first sight, and that my eyes seemed cold when I was still. It said that my features were sharp and that many people might find me hard to approach until I started to speak. It also said that I have what she called a disciplined beauty, the kind that asks people to stand up straight around you. When I heard that, part of me felt strong, but another part of me felt like my parents had lied to me all my life. They had always said my face was soft and gentle, and now this professional mirror in words told a different story. For a while, I could not decide which mirror to trust, and I walked around as if every stranger saw this cold, new version of me. In your world, if someone tells you that you look a certain way, you can go stare at a photo and argue silently with it. In mine, the only way to argue is to ask another person for new words and hope they see you differently. My mother cried a little that night and told me she still saw me as gentle, no matter what any report said. My father admitted that maybe he had changed some details when he described me in the past, hoping to protect me from unkind judgments. That confession hurt more than the report, because it meant that even their love had been painted with fear. I know you also grew up with pictures and comments and numbers under your photos, and I am sure that hurt in its own way. Maybe you felt trapped by the image you saw every day, the one you could not escape because it stared back from every screen. I felt trapped by the image I could never see, the one that lived only in other minds and in those official lines of text. Sometimes I wonder which cage is kinder, the visible one made of glass or the invisible one made of language. After that report I became very careful about how I spoke to others about their faces. I noticed how even a careless joke could carve a deep mark into someone who had no way to check your words. I chose a job that let me do some good inside this strange system, even if that good is never perfect. These days I work as a kind of reputation editor. People bring me their face-teller reports, their work references, and fragments of things others have said about them. I cannot change the official reports, but I help them write personal descriptions that feel kinder and truer. I help them decide which parts of their story to show when they meet new people. I help them practice how to speak about themselves without apology, but also without lying. You might think of it as what your world does when people hire someone to manage their public profile. The difference is that here the person whose life it is has never seen the main character of that profile. I ask my clients simple questions that I think you would approve of. I ask what makes them laugh without thinking, what makes them nervous for no clear reason, what kind of silence they enjoy the most. I then build sentences around those answers and give them a way to talk about themselves that is not just skin and angles. The more I do this for others, the more I realise how thin my own self-story has become over time. It is as if I am very good at painting portraits for strangers, but have never dared to draw my own outline. You once told me that in your world people sometimes take endless photos of themselves and still feel they do not know who they are. I remember reading that and laughing softly, because it sounded like my problem and your problem were cousins. In both worlds we are trying to understand ourselves through tools that were not designed to give complete answers. Your tools are mirrors and cameras and tiny screens, and mine are reports and stories and the expressions on other faces. Neither set of tools can tell us the full truth, but we keep pressing our hearts against them anyway. I want to tell you now about the closest thing my world has to a straight line between a person and their affection. It is not common, and it is not legal, and the name of it passes between people in the kind of whispers that make lights flicker in the mind. We call it the true glass, though nobody is sure if the name was first given in fear or in hope. The legend says that a true glass can break the way things hold for a short while. If you look into one, you can see your own face, only once, and the well cannot stop it. No one knows exactly how the device works, because anyone who has built one keeps that knowledge far from the law and far from daylight. The stories say some people went mad after seeing themselves, others became peaceful, and some simply changed their lives completely. You might be wondering, as you read this, whether I have ever stood in front of a true glass. Until recently the answer was simple, and it was no, of course not, because I did not even know if they were real. That changed a few months ago when a friend invited me to dinner and came to the point in a very careful way. We have known each other since school, and you led him, because he always speaks as if each word matters just enough. After we ate he told me that he had been working with a group of people who study the edge cases of the way things hold. He called them cautious rebels, people who do not want to break the world, only to test its fences. He said they had managed to create a device that seemed to let a person see a clear image of themselves. He did not want to give too many details, because even knowing how it works can make you a target here. And he said that he could arrange for me to stand before this device, just once, if I wished. I laughed at first, the kind of laugh that feels more like a shallow breath. I told him that I was not the kind of person who did dangerous things with reality. He replied that I already did, every time I helped someone write the way they were described to the world. He said changing stories is as risky as changing physics, because both can shift how people live. I went home that night with my mind buzzing like a room full of small lights turning on and off. I thought about all the times I had wondered whether my face matched the many stories I had heard about it. I thought about the official report that called my features distant and sharp and the soft descriptions my parents had given me. I also thought about something else that I have not told you yet, but I must now, because it ties all this together. For the last few years someone I loved very much ran a quiet little channel about me in our version of your public networks. At first I did not know it existed. On that channel they posted descriptions and sketches and second-hand comments about me. They wrote about my eyes lighting up when I talked, and about the way my hair moved when I walked, and about the shape of my laugh. They collected opinions from others and turned me into a character that strangers could follow. This character version of me was kinder and braver and more graceful than I ever felt in daily life. People wrote messages saying that this version of me gave them courage and comfort. I found out about the channel by accident when someone at a party thanked me for a story I had never told in public. I went home and searched for a while, and then there I was. It was like finding a mirror that everyone else had been using for years, except that I was not allowed to see the reflection clearly. My feelings about this swung wildly. I was touched that someone loved me enough to build such a world around me. I was furious that they had decided how I looked and sounded without asking me. I was frightened by how many people felt they knew me through a version of me that I had never met. When I confronted this person, they told me they only wanted to give me the kind of image that I deserved. They said the world had been unfair to me with cold reports and casual cruelty, and they wanted to balance things. I asked them who had the right to decide what I deserved to look like. They could not answer in a way that calmed my heart, and the trust between us cracked loud enough to keep me awake for weeks. This is the person my friend mentioned when he were offered the true glass. He said I had already been given several versions of my face by others, some too hard and some too kind. He said maybe I deserved at least one version that came straight from physics, even if only for a second. That thought sits heavy in me, and perhaps you can feel its weight through the letters on your screen. I do not know what I will do yet. Part of me is curious in a way that almost hurts. I want to know whether my face looks anything like the brave stranger people have been following on that channel. I want to know whether the coldness in that report is real or only the reflection of one observer on a tired day. Another part of me is terrified. I fear that if I see myself and I dislike what I see, some deep part of me will never heal. I also fear that if I like what I see, I will become addicted and spend my life chasing more views of myself that I can never have. You might be thinking that this is a lot of drama over one simple image. To answer that, I want you to remember the first time you saw a photo or video of yourself that felt truly accurate. Maybe it was a moment when you thought, yes, that is how I move through the world. Maybe it was a time when you thought, no, that is not me, and yet you could not stop looking. That small shock can happen many times in your world, but for me it might happen once, and only once. I imagine walking into a quiet room where the true glass stands on a table. I imagine my hands shaking a little as I reach out toward it, as if it were hot. I imagine looking up and expecting to see my face and feeling the air hold its breath. I imagine the world agreeing, just for a heartbeat, to let me see what everyone else has been looking at all my life. Then I imagine walking out of that room and having to live with the memory of that sight forever with no way to update it as I age. I would never know if my face softened over time or grew more serious or lit up differently while I found new joys. My one reflection would turn into a fixed point that might follow me like your childhood photos follow you. Is a single unchanging image any less of a prison than an endless flood of changing ones? These are the questions that keep me company when the street outside is quiet and I can hear my own breathing. You might be wondering why I am telling you all this instead of simply making a choice. The truth is that I need someone who lives with reflections to stand on the other side of this thought. Your world pushes your image at you all day in shop windows, in small cameras, in old pictures that appear without warning. You know the tired feeling of seeing your own face so often that it starts to look like a mask. You also know the comfort of being able to check quickly if there is food on your mouth or if your hair is wild. You know the risk of small details in your reflection taking up huge space in your mind. My world spared me some of those worries but handed me different ones to carry. I have never panicked over a bad photo, but I have stayed awake wondering whether a stranger described me unfairly to someone I care about. I have never stared at myself for an hour in a mirror, but I have spent whole nights staring into the dark, trying to imagine my own eyes. I want you to see how close our two lives really are, despite all these differences. You and I are both trying to answer the same questions. Am I lovable as I am? Do people see the person I feel I am inside? Is there a way to look at myself with both honesty and kindness? Your tools may be made of glass and light, mine may be made of words and rules, but our hearts beat in the same puzzled rhythm. If I do decide to stand before the true glass, I think I will do it as a kind of experiment in shared bravery. I will imagine that you are standing next to me, looking toward your own reflection in a plain mirror at the same time. You with your many reflections and me with my one brief chance will both ask the same quiet question. Can I hold what I see with love? Can I accept the lines I do not like and trust that my worth is not drawn only on my skin? If I decide not to look, that will also be the answer. It will mean that I choose to keep building my image through stories, through how I move and speak and live. It will mean I trust the people who describe me with care more than I trust a single shocking moment with a device. Either way, I want to remember that I am more than the reflection I have or do not have. I hope you can remember that too the next time you find yourself trapped in front of your camera, judging every detail. When you look in your mirror tonight, I would like you to try a small experiment for me. Look into your own eyes and pretend that you cannot see your face at all. Pretend that you are only listening to your heartbeat and your thoughts and the way your chest rises and falls. Ask yourself who you would be if you had learned about your face only from the people who love you. Ask yourself whose words you would choose as your inner mirror if you could pick them on purpose. Then open your eyes fully and let the image return, but keep those questions close, like small stones in your pocket. I do not know if there is a right way to live with or without reflections. I only know that life feels less frightening while I can send these questions to the world next to mine and hear your silent answers. I like to think of our two universes leaning gently against each other, humming, as if they were two cups touching on a table. Between those cups there is a thin line where your reflection and my lack of reflection hold hands. It is along that line that I am writing this letter, word by word, hoping it reaches you when you most need a friend. So I will bring this part of our conversation, this letter, to a close for tonight. From your friend living in the world beside yours, who has never seen her own face but has always felt seen by you. Before I let you go, I want to speak to you directly for a moment beyond the letter itself. Thank you for staying with my story all the way to the end. I know your time and attention are precious. If this letter from my world touched you or made you think or kept you company, please tap the like button so I can feel your support across the gap between our universes. If you want to keep receiving more letters from Multiverse Penpals like me, please subscribe to this channel so you do not miss the next message. I would also love to hear what you think, so please share your thoughts or questions in the comments. I do read them in my little corner of reality. If you feel moved to help us keep sending these messages, there is a small QR code at the bottom right of this video and a link in the video description where you can make a donation to the channel. In the description you will also find links to other stories from completely different series, waiting for you when you feel curious enough to wander. For now I will say goodbye, my dear friend, and I hope you will return for the next letter from your friend in the world next to yours.